It's time for the 1430 Connection on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM, spotlighting news, newsmakers, and important community issues. Now, with this week's edition of the 1430 Connection, here is WNAV news anchor Donna Cole.
Welcome to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me today is Steuart Pittman. He's the Democratic candidate for county executive as of right now. He is the only one. I think there might be more coming in the near future. Steuart, welcome to 1430 Connection, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Donna. It's great to be here.
As of right now, you're just going to be running against County Executive Steve Shue. We don't know of any other candidates in either party.
Well, I think there are rumors of Grasso running in the primary.
But not filed yet.
Not filed. Yeah.
And the primary is June 26th. Early voting starts June 14th. It runs through June 21st. And then November 6th is Election Day. We did ask Mr. Shue to join us today. Their campaign responded that they had to decline. They're focusing on the upcoming Republican primary, and they would like to allow all potential candidates the time to file and to be part of the conversation. They said they'd be happy to discuss a possible joint interview after the primary. All right, so who are you?
Steuart Pittman.
Got that, but go beyond the bio that we see on your website.
I live in Davidsonville on a farm, a 550-acre family farm, and I was born there and I was raised there. It's been in our family for 8 generations, so we're longtime Anne Arundel County folk. And I make my living with horses, training them. We grow hay as well, and I run a nonprofit called Retired Racehorse Project.
Okay, so is it racehorses that you're mostly concerned with as you're training them?
We train them after they race, so they retire from racing at age 4 or 5 years old. And
in the nonprofit, I got that.
Yeah,
before.
We don't do racehorses.
Okay,
I've
so
never taken a horse.
You
to a
started
race.
the Retired Racehorse Training Project, which basically saves racehorses from being put down.
Retrains them for second careers. Yeah.
How did you happen upon that idea?
Well, I grew up riding thoroughbreds that had been racehorses. So it's not a new idea to ride an ex-racehorse for second careers, but I always loved them because they seem to me to be the horse with the most spirit and the most athleticism. And then, of course, they're vulnerable because there are so many that are bred and there are not always enough homes for them. So they do end up getting sent sometimes to Canada and Mexico for slaughter. And so really it became a marketing campaign to train people to train these horses. That I thought was going to be my legacy, the most important thing I did in my life. Building the business was important. We train horses as a business on the farm, separate from the nonprofit.
Right.
But now we've gone out nationally and started this organization to promote the concept. And it's really taken off.
Speaking of legacy, you also have kids.
I have 3 kids. I have a 27-year-old daughter, Jessie, who lives in L.A., and I have twin boys, Sam and Andy, who are 8, and they go to Davidsonville Elementary.
And did you grow up going to public or private school?
We grew up in Washington during the weekdays. My dad was a lawyer in Washington, and he worked in the Kennedy administration before that. And so we went to school in Washington, and then we're on the farm on weekends and vacations. So I went to St. Albans School in D.C.
And speaking of your dad, for those that don't know, he was part of JFK's administration. And if anybody is as old as I am, remembers going into the fallout shelters during elementary school, that was your dad.
Yeah, he was Assistant Secretary of Defense for Civil Defense. And his job was during the Cuban Missile Crisis to make sure that if there were a nuclear war, as many people as possible would have a place to go where they might survive. And so he would go around the country trying to get people to build bomb shelters.
You think we need him again today?
I hope not.
All right. Favorite book, favorite movie, and favorite song?
Oh, my goodness gracious. Well, favorite song first. Tennessee stud was long and lean, the color of the sun, and his eyes were green. That's a good one, huh?
Country guy.
Yeah, well, it's sort of country.
Okay.
And maybe Blazing Saddles.
Okay.
Not a bad movie, you know.
We got horse motif going here.
Yeah,
book?
I'm a boy, you know. I grew up a boy. My favorite book. Now, this is going to sound a little bit, nerdy, but I really loved Audacity of Hope, Barack Obama. It really turned me on to what he was doing.
All right. You had no intentions to run for office, but you have worked in community organization, giving back, obviously, through your nonprofit. Why now? What was the prompt?
Well, I'll tell you why I never intended to run for office.
Yeah.
Because I love being on the outside. I love being the person who's bringing people together and advocating and convincing the politicians that they should do right. There's a lot of satisfaction one gets from that. So I thought, why would I ever want to be the person who is getting yelled at by everybody, right? Having to. I think it changed first when Trump was elected. My wife actually always said she would divorce me if I ever ran for office, because people would often say, Steuart, you should run for office. You're good at this. She said no, she would divorce me. So that ended that conversation. After the election, she said, it really matters, these decisions that people make. We have to have good people, and everybody has to do their part. So if you have skills and you have abilities, you have to really look where you're needed.
And she hasn't thus far filed for divorce.
She's actually really behind this. She's really,
good.
She's solid. Yeah.
Good. We're going to take a short break. This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We will be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me today is Steuart Pittman. He's currently only Democratic candidate for county executive, but there's still time to file. You seem to be running with a big focus on development and stopping the development that we're seeing lately in the county. Is this correct?
Yeah, I don't want to stop all development, but I certainly want to stop losing the forests and stop losing the open space that we have. And I certainly want to stop giving money away to developers to do things that they were going to do anyway. And I want to make sure that the county budget, long-term, is in good shape. So I really feel that the development strategy has actually crippling our local government.
And what do you think about the arguments going on, or the concern going on the Mayo Peninsula with the parks that do belong to the county, that Mr. Shue has made a priority in his administration to give back to the county residents, to open to all county residents, that many of the people on the Mayo Peninsula feel, you can't do this to us. We have one road in, one road out. We have too much traffic as is. Go ahead.
Yeah, they have too much traffic, and they also have 600 lots that can now be developed all of a sudden because they got their hookup with the sewer. So, but I've talked to a lot of those people, and I've been to their meetings. They're putting together their own Envision Mayo plan, which I think is great, and they're organizing as a community, and I really respect that. And they're not unreasonable people. They understand that they have some beautiful space out there and that they should be able to share it, but they have a traffic problem. So I think what happened largely was lack of listening to the community before putting these plans together, and I see that over and over and over again with this administration, that if you go out first and you find out from the community what they can live with, what they can't live with, you can come up with a plan that both shares the resource and doesn't make everybody feel like they're being attacked and overwhelmed with traffic.
If you become the county executive, would you continue the process of opening these parks that aren't yet?
I will probably take a pause. And I mean, they've already taken a pause. They've already backtracked on some of what they were talking about. And I've started to hear ideas. I mean, one idea that I heard was a trolley where people would, instead of driving all the way into the peninsula, a trolley that people really would want to get on, and then they would use the trolley to get out to these parks. And the trolleys might even take kayaks on them. So those kinds of ideas, I think, really have to be looked at, and that's a matter of communication.
The firefighters local union, I know, presented you with a check. There's been consternation between the county executive and the local firefighters union for a long time because they feel like they're understaffed, need more people. They've now backed you?
As far as I know, there's not a formal endorsement yet, but yes, they have written a check and they've been to events and they've been very supportive.
Is that going to be part of your initiative to get more emergency personnel in the county?
Yes. Police and fire, we are understaffed.
And how would you do that?
Well, we have to look at the budget to figure out where the money's going to come from to do that. But they have a really good I mean, they have a real serious issue. They not only are getting paid much less than firefighters in neighboring counties, so they're losing firefighters when they do get them, but they're working overtime and there aren't enough of them. And when they did have, they went into contract negotiations with the administration, and the arbitration ruling completely sided with the firefighters and said that the county can do what they're asking for. The county does have the money, and it's an unreasonable position. So
you're talking about the SAFER grant that was available.
And then as a result of that, after that, the county executive canceled the SAFER grant, which was going to have federal funding for 3 years to hire more firefighters. And so the firefighters felt like, why would you not want federal money to help support having more firefighters? And so, that's something that I'm definitely listening to. And it is going to cost money to be able to pay people more. And that's true of firefighters, teachers, and police, and to hire people. And that's why the budget's so important, and the process of the budget's so important. And public input into the budget is so important.
Had you been in office when the SAFER grant was offered, would you have taken it, knowing that the county would be on the hook after this money ran out to continue?
Yes, but I would have also been in charge of the whole budget, so it wouldn't have been the exact same situation we would have been looking at.
So yes, you would have taken it?
Yes, and I think that the county executive would have taken it as well. He had planned to take it, and then when the contract negotiations went the way they did, some people say out of anger. I don't know what the decision-making process was at that point, but everybody was surprised when he canceled that grant.
All right, back to the Mayo Peninsula. Would you make it a priority to open a fire station there?
I would. There are a lot of these questions, a lot of these issues where there's a lot of questions, and a year out from the actual election, and a year and a few months from a year from taking office at this point now, I can't promise that I would say that we are going to build a fire station, but I would certainly look at the issues and look at the budget once again, and figure out how one can go about providing better response times and make it possible to serve that community with fire. Safety, yeah.
The Board of Education operates pretty much autonomously once they have their money given to them. That's, I think, another cause for consternation in the past with county executives feel like there's no control over that. How do you feel about that? Do you think everything's set up perfectly?
The county executive in this has a lot of power compared to other counties. And I would not want the county executive making decisions about how to educate our children. I mean, we have professionals in the Board of Education, we have teachers who do nothing but that. And I think it's appropriate that the budget, because the taxpayers are paying for it, come through the county executive and the county council. But I don't believe that the county executive should be able to make decisions about how our children are taught.
All right, we're going to take another short break. This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We will be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. I'm in the studio with Steuart Pittman, Democratic candidate for county executive. We're talking about all sorts of stuff, including development and Steuart's stance regarding development going forward in the county. I had come across an article he wrote for, and I'm probably going to say it wrong, the Equerry.
Equerry
magazine, written in September 2010. This was about casinos opening. He writes, "Enter the Maryland Jockey Club in an alliance with the NIMBYs, which stands for Not in My Backyard. Most major developments are opposed by NIMBYs. Our Maryland Horse Park in Gambrels was blocked by very vocal NIMBYs who managed to get a couple of politicians on their side. This casino is opposed by residents of the neighborhood adjacent to Arundel Mills. I find it ironic that people who live near a mall that attracts 14 million visitors per year and is a hangout for bored teenagers would oppose a facility on that site that is projected to generate $250 million per year for the state's education trust fund and 4,000 jobs. There's nothing like more schooling and jobs to keep kids from getting bored and selling drugs in the mall parking lot. But maybe I just don't think like other people." Would you have written this today?
I certainly feel that the position that I took was the right position, and I think history has proven that. And the position that I took, by the way, the context of this was that people remember this referendum where Arundel Mills had gotten the license for the casino. Laurel Racetrack had thought they were going to get the license for the casino, and Laurel Racetrack, owned by a guy up in Canada, Frank Stronach, decided to try to block the casino at Arundel Mills with a referendum on the zoning. Well, I was approached by people who cared about the survival of horse racing, but also people who cared about the revenue from the casino. And if that referendum, if the voters of Anne Arundel County had blocked the zoning for Arundel Mills to have their casino, then for the next 3 or 4 years, these two corporate titans, David Cordish and Frank Stronach, would have been in court fighting each other, and there would have been no revenue. So that was the context of it. And so I was making an argument that, in fact, people should vote as they did, should not vote to block the zoning for the casino. Just let the thing go forward. It had already been approved in every other way. And that Laurel Racetrack should just give up the fight and let the casino move forward. So
you don't have it out for NIMBYs.
Well, so I was a community organizer, and we can talk about that part of my life. There was 9 years where I worked with communities to engage them in issues. And in fact, our slogan for our campaign is putting communities first. So I'm a big believer in people in their communities coming together and having a voice. But the NIMBY term comes from any time that there's something that is offensive in a neighborhood, not in my backyard, right? And so that's, when you're trying to get the project in, then you're frustrated by the NIMBYs. When you're in the neighborhood, the NIMBYs are the heroes. I mean, that was my point there, was that, in fact, there's already a mall, and it's already developed. So putting a casino into a mall site is really preferable to putting a casino in a lot of other places.
You don't think that mall parking lots are hangouts for kids selling drugs? Every mall parking lot?
Not every mall parking lot, no.
Or every kid?
But that was based on people, making that point, and that there had been a lot of arrests for that for people using the mall parking lot to sell drugs.
Okay.
So.
Negative campaigning. We definitely see it at the national level. We saw some of it at the local level. Scott Travers is your campaign manager. He's in the room with us, being quiet. This is sometimes outside of the domain of the candidate doing this. It can be done by PACs. It can be done by other entities that people didn't know about. Have you and Mr. Shu talked about this yet?
We've not talked about negative campaigning. I mean, we know each other, and I like Steve Shu. I've worked with him. I've met with him probably a year and a half, 2 years before he first ran for county executive to talk about farm issues. I actually intended to contact him and sit down with him before I announced that I was going to run. When the announcement came out before we wanted it to, about 2 weeks before, and the reporter called Steve, and Steve texted me and asked if it was true. And, I said I apologize because I wanted to talk to him first. I wanted to make sure that this was all done in a very, upfront way, and that we were communicating. And so the way we left it was that we would sit down, but we have not yet. We're busy folks.
Yeah, do you want to have a talk about negative campaigning and that you would like to keep it positive, or all bets are off?
I mean, politicians always talk about that and say, I'm going to pledge this and I'm going to pledge that. And then you're right that sometimes they don't even, they do approve the direct mail and the ads that go out. But I mean, we can have that conversation, but I'm not going to try to get him to tell Lawrence Scott, who's his campaign guy, to stop using the tactics that he's used on Jerry Walker, claiming Jerry Walker's a Democrat because he went across the aisle and he supported some proposals that Democrats liked, or that he's not going to put out stuff like he did on Gavin Buckley, teasing him about his, Australian heritage. I mean, I'm just not going to dictate it, worry about it. It just is what it is. We're going to be running a campaign that's somewhat aggressive because we're going to have to be talking about his record. And so while one person might think that's negative, another person might think that's important information, and we're running on change. We're running on changing that record. So,
social media and media, traditional and otherwise, big impact national and big impact local. Do you think media literacy is needed in schools?
Yeah, I think that social media is something that media literacy and social media literacy to educate kids and help guide them about this world that they're all in. In fact, they know more about it than their teachers often. So yes, I think that kind of, when in college courses, kids, young adults flock to those kinds of courses because that's the future. So yeah, I think high schools are a little bit behind on that.
And middle school?
But yeah, and middle schools, yeah, those kids are the ones that are first getting into it. I know you mentioned you have a daughter, and I have a 27-year-old daughter. We want them to have some education on that.
You want to reach 20-somethings also. You have a young guy running your campaign. Speaking of kids, I want my kid briefed on everything that's happening. Is your campaign on Snapchat?
Good question. No.
That was Scott giggling in the background, but
everything disappears when you put it up. Why would you want that? I don't know.
Because this is how kids get their news.
Yeah. No, but I really do want to get young people involved in the campaign and paying attention. My daughter's 27 and she lives in LA, and she flew out for our campaign launch, which was snowed out. So we did it the following weekend, but she spent the whole day videoing me and drilling me for interviews like this. And she was a very good coach, and she's very, very astute politically. And I think there are a lot of other young people that are. and I want them to be.
Was there anything I missed?
Well, on the budget issues, I think one of the things that's big in the current administration's effort to make it easier to develop and to grow by leaps and bounds is what he said in his fundraising pitch, pro-growth agenda, giving away money. So $36 million to David Cordish for the hotel at the casino was not necessary. And the 30% cut in the hookup fees, it's worth about $250 million as a gift to developers. I mean, that's money that really could be spent for teachers and police and to help the environment. What I really want to do is get the county to look inside our own people and stop standing at the border trying to grow faster than all the other counties and take care of what we got, because we love what we've got. This is the most beautiful county anywhere, and we've got all this coast. We love it.
Thank you very much for joining me
Thank
today.
you. It's fun.
This is Donna Cole in the 1430 Connection. We will see you next week.